Jorge Sedano, co-host of George and Jen, new weeknight show here on ESPN Radio 104.5 The Team from 9 to 11. We'll ask George about his new co-host here in a few minutes. But George, you're our basketball guy, man. The New York Knicks reported to camp yesterday. How optimistic should we be about this team that was historically bad last year?
Look, man,
Oh, no.
I think they've added some decent pieces. Aaron Aflalo, Robin Lopez. If Carmelo is any sorts of healthy, they should at least compete for an 8th spot. Now, I know that people think, well, it's the East. It's terrible. They should be better than an 8th seed. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case anymore, because let's take a look at the East right now. Cleveland is obviously the best team, and then you've got a number of teams that can vie for that 2nd spot, whether it's the Wizards, maybe it's the Raptors, or the Hawks, or the Heat. So that's 4 other teams right there, in top 5. Then you got Milwaukee, Chicago, obviously you can include in that mix for the 2 seed too. So all of a sudden, that's 7 teams. So I don't think the Knicks are better than any of those teams on paper. So to me, their best bet is an 8th spot.
The one thing I will say, though, I love the way Melo is talking. Can we believe that we may actually see a different Melo on the court this year?
Yeah, man, he needs to play the power forward, and I know he talked about it a little yesterday. And he needs to embrace that, because at this stage of his career, he's not a great defender. He's never really been a great defender. But now he's less of a better defender, because you're talking about a guy who's getting up there and on the other side of 30. He may be better suited to defend 4s at this point, because 4s are going smaller all over the league. There's even talk about Paul George, for God's sake, playing some 4. Now, Carmelo wouldn't be able to guard him either. But my point is, generally speaking, he's better suited to guard bigger, lumbering type of guys, even though now most 4s are old 3s. So I think he's in a better situation there. If he embraces that, I think he'll be fine. I'm curious to see what Carmelo is like as a leader, because that's one thing he's always been knocked for. And now he's got a young guy in Porzingis who I think has a pretty decent ceiling, and I think that he can be a pretty good player. So we'll see how he brings him along.
Jorge Sedano of George and Jen, 9 to 11 weeknights on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. You mentioned Porzingis. We hear all the positives from the media now after the media as a whole did nothing but bash him when the pick actually happened.
No, not me. So, I wasn't one of those guys. I actually, you can go back and listen to podcasts, whether it was the show or the NBA lockdown. Me and Amin Hassan, our ESPN NBA front office insider, were all in on Porzingis as being a functional, good NBA player. The only thing he needs is weight. I think at this point he's just too thin, but I think he can be a good player in this league, a rotation player without any question.
And he's gained 11 pounds of muscle in the last 2 months. So you're saying we should be excited about this guy as the 4th overall pick?
Yeah, man, but It's New York. You guys are always so brutal with everybody. You don't let anybody, you don't give anybody a shot to develop.
Hey, so I resemble that remark.
Well, the Knicks don't give us a shot either. I mean, they're so bad so early on. It's a give and take.
No, listen, I get that. But here's the thing. Like, this kid can play. And the one thing that translates in this sport is shooting. And he can shoot. He's big enough that no one's going to be able to block his shot very, very many times. And I'm not comparing him to Dirk. But in that sense, Dirk is so big and so long that it was almost impossible to block his shot, too. And I think Porzingis has some of those type of skills. Again, not comparing them as far as players are concerned, not yet, certainly, because Dirk is one of the most transcendent international players and players really in general that we've had in the sport. But I think that Porzingis has some skill sets that translate. I think he's better defensively than most people give him credit for because of his wingspan. Again, it's all about, can he maintain his position defensively? Can he help? Can that length make up for maybe some lack of lateral movement that he has? But he's athletic. I don't think he's the guy jumping out of the gym, but he's certainly athletic enough at that height to be able to make things difficult for people on defense too.
When you look across the NBA rosters, who's the team to beat this year?
Oh man. Look, it's Golden State or San Antonio to me. Like, those are the 2 best teams. If you're asking me who the top 5 teams in the league are, again, this is everybody's healthy, right? Like, we're just going to go and say everyone's going to be 100%. There are no issues with anybody. I'm going to say in no particular order. Well, actually, you know what? Hell, I'll give you an order. I would say Golden State, San Antonio. You can flip-flop either of those 2. Then I would go I'd probably go OKC. and then I would go the Clippers, and then I'd say the Cavs. That would be the top 5 teams right now.
All right, very nice. Getting ready for the NBA, Jorge Sedano. You know he'll be all over it. George and Jen, 9 to 11, weeknights on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Hey, Green Bay, 38-3 in Rodgers' last 41 home starts. Do we fully recognize the home field advantage that he has at Lambeau?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing what he's been able to do there, right? When you think about it. He hasn't thrown an interception in over 580 attempts there. He's thrown for 5,300 yards at Lambeau since his last interception and 48 touchdowns since his last interception at Lambeau. Again, all those are just stats at home. Yeah, it's impressive what he's doing. He makes the game look so easy. And it's funny, man, because you think back to that draft with him and Alex Smith, and Alex Smith will never be able to shake those comparisons because of that draft. But people, if you go back and look, people were wondering, hey, who do you go with, Rodgers or Smith? And we were debating those two guys at the top of that draft. And then Aaron fell because, back then, all these teams that were picking basically after that all had other needs in their opinion. And they didn't feel like, they felt like they were in win now mode or they had the right quarterback. And he ended up falling to Green Bay. And it's just amazing when you look back at that being the case. But, yeah, man, he is arguably the best passer I've seen. Now, that doesn't mean that he's the most accomplished quarterback, but I think he's arguably the best passer I've seen. And that's not a knock to Brady or Manning or Marino or Montana or any of those guys because they're all in that discussion too. But, man, he makes it look easy.
Well, you said Brady's name, and then Patriots fans everywhere perk up. Greeny this morning said he's getting that 2007 run the regular season table vibe from this team. Are you getting that same vibe?
Sort of, yeah. I talked about it last night, actually, on the show, too. I said that it's very similar to what we saw in 2007. Now, I just think it's too early to say they're going to go 16-0. And I know some of my colleagues, like Mike Sando and Mike Reese and even Peter King, have written that they can go 16-0. Sure, they can go 16-0. And I think what Brady's doing right now is more impressive than, honestly, anything he's ever done, considering his age, considering his supporting cast. And that's not a knock on Gronk, because Gronk, to me, is arguably one of the best tight ends in the history of this league already. But you look at the rest of that group, I mean, he's got Deion Lewis back there, a guy who was discarded in this league not so long ago, playing running back. And, Julian Edelman is a nice slot receiver, but, he's not – look, in 2007, he was playing with Wes Welker in his prime, and he had Randy Moss still being Randy Moss, a guy who was scoring 20 touchdowns a game. Like, that's not necessarily who he has back there. And, of course, let's not forget, they had a pretty good running game going back for many years, whether it was Corey Dillon or Antoine Smith. They had guys back there, not Deion Lewis, who is, 5 foot, 8, 9, or whatever he is, and maybe 200 pounds soaking wet. So it's pretty amazing what they've been able to accomplish this year.
Jorge Sedano, co-host of George and Jen, weeknights 9 to 11, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. All right, the Bills and the Jets, they're both 2-1. Whose stock are you buying?
I would buy the Bills over the Jets. Look, man, Ryan Fitzpatrick is what he is. And, yes, they have good talent around him. I think Brandon Marshall is one of the more talented receivers in the league. I think they need Chris Ivory back in there because I think he changes the game for them as far as the running game is concerned. But I just don't trust Fitzpatrick. And I know you can sit there and say, well, you trust Tyrod Taylor? Well, they're about even to me, but I would say Taylor, at least this season, has shown that he can elevate his game some, whereas we kind of know what Fitzpatrick is at this point. He's like a step above a McCown right now, is basically what you have when you have Ryan Fitzpatrick. But the skill position players around Tyrod Taylor are unbelievable. I mean, Sammy Watkins, he's a great young receiver. Obviously, they got Percy. Charles Clay was a nice pickup, at tight end, and obviously McCoy and the kid from Florida State behind him, Williams. I mean, that's a hell of a group at the skill position. Plus, both defenses to me are about even. I wouldn't give one the edge over the other. I think Todd Bowles he might be a better coach than Rex. And I don't know if many people would side with me on that, but I happen to think that's the case. I think Rex obviously is a great defensive coach. I think Todd is more of a leader of men, and he understands that offense is important Whereas I feel like Rex is kind of stuck in the 80s and 90s a little bit with some of his philosophies on offense. And look, the numbers have proven out that the Bills have put up a lot of points, so maybe Rex is coming around on that. But I still have more faith in Bowles being a guy who will entrust the right people on offense, in this case Chan Gailey, than I would with Rex. But I guess we'll let the season play out. But if I was buying stocks, to answer your point, I'd probably buy Buffalo over the Jets, at least at the moment.
All right. Now, would you buy stock in the Yankees having a chance to go past the wild card game?
Yes. If they're playing the Astros, I mean, look, it's a one-game scenario, so obviously anything can happen. But I would buy stock in the Yankees beating Houston, which is what I guess it's going to be in a one-game scenario. If it's the Angels, I probably have a little more reservation, only because history kind of stinks there for them against that team in those short series. But I like their chances against Houston, and I would still like their chances against the Angels, but I would have some postseason traumatic syndrome there with those guys if they ended up playing them. But I like their chances, and I think they should be in the divisional series. And who knows? Look, man, I don't think anyone really thought they'd be here, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, we didn't.
I did. I always do, though.
Yeah,
I'm a homer.
That's true. I did not. Yeah.
I was one of the few guys that felt they'd be in the mix at my place, but I don't think I thought, I didn't think it was a sure bet that they would be in this position. And everybody needs to give Alex Rodriguez a lot of credit here, because if you would have told anyone, that, even me, who I thought, who said at the beginning of the season, I think Alex can hit 25 home runs and get you about 85 RBIs, I never thought he'd hit over 30 and, come closer to 100 RBIs. Like, I didn't think that was possible.
George, how are you feeling about the Mets in the National League heading into the postseason?
Well, look, man, what Matt Harvey are we going to get here? Like, that to me is the question, right? Their pitching is as good as anyone, so I give them a chance. But, man, when you look at the rest of those staffs, I know the Dodgers have this thing with Clayton Kershaw where he's kind of like the Dan Marino, right? Where you know how good he is in the regular season. He's had some tough luck in the postseason. That would be kind of the football equivalent. But I still like the Dodgers more than I like them. Obviously, I like the Cardinals more than I like anyone. Hell, even all three of those teams in the Central are pretty damn good. But look, all you need is great pitching, and I think they have the recipe for it. I think the playoffs in baseball this year are going to be as good as they've been in a long time.
Jorge Sedano, ESPN Radio. George and Jen, now weeknights 9 to 11. Sedano, you are now teamed up with Jen Lada. God bless America, she's beautiful, dude. Holy smokes, man. Tell us about your show, weeknights 9 to 11, and what we can expect from you and Jen, man.
Listen, Jen's great, and yeah, she's a good-looking girl. There's no question.
Holy heck. Seriously.
You know what, though? She's a really passionate sports fan, man. If you listen to the show, like, if you've listened to me, like, you know where I come from as far as the passion meter's concerned. I would say she matches me on that level.
Wow.
Like, she's very passionate. She's a Midwest girl, Chicago girl, so she loves her Chicago teams, but she's been a reporter for a long time, and she's dabbled in some radio in the past, and she was originally hired, obviously, to work with Colin before he left the company. So, I said, hey, look, if when the opportunity was presented to me, I said, well, look, if Colin thought she was good enough to work with him, and I respect Colin as much as anybody in this business, I said, she sure as hell can work with me. So it's been fun so far. I mean, it's only been a couple of days. We did some work last week before with the official launch. But yeah, it's been fun, and I think it's going to be great.
George and Jen, weeknights 9 to 11 on 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Sedano, we're looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, George, I still think you're the pretty one, though. Okay,
You're a handsome man, but I saw her, I guess, in August or whatever when she first started, and I paused. I swear to you, I paused baseball tonight, and I go, "Who is that?" Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that you guys, at least you guys, think I'm the pretty one. I do. I'm pretty. You know what? And that's the look I've always gone for, is pretty. It may not be the ideal scenario, it may not be the most manly of traits, but I like being pretty, too, as a guy. I got to be honest.
Did you have the talk when she walked in? Did you go, listen, I'm the looks, okay? You just bring the facts.
Yeah.
Bring the facts.
Exactly. So you can be the brains, I'll be the beauty. That's how this works.
George and Jen, 9 to 11, and Sedano's on Twitter, at Sedano ESPN. Sedano, we love the show, man. Appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it, boys. Anytime.